Hey everybody, now we're going to be going through adding and creating dogs and blog posts. We'll show you how we use the modules we made that sit over the database, and we'll show you the database. And I'll be walking through Visual Studio Code's debugger to debug the node process so that we could see what's going on. Highly recommend you use this if you ever need help with your node application, because the Visual Studio Code node debugger is far faster than attaching a WebKit debugger, just as an aside. So right now we're stopped on a breakpoint, which is going to run in our app.js file when we start adding Sasha to the database. So right now we're stopped at this add Sasha variable, and we haven't yet set it, but after we allow the breakpoint to continue, and execution to continue rather, we're going to be calling the dogs.modules add dog method with values of Sasha and an array that has Cheagle, Chihuahua, and Beagle, describing what breeds she is. So let's take a look right there. Let's continue. Now I set a couple more breakpoints all over the place. Now you'll notice that here we have one breakpoint in the add dog method, but not where we wanted it to be. Anyway, here it is. Now we're inside. We've got the result of the promise where we retrieve the dog collection. So as you'll see, we have a reference to the dog collection, so we can start using our database collection methods over here. Now, we're first going to define a new dog, which is just setting up a JavaScript object, just like this, where we have the new dog variable with a name and breeds, which are going to be the array that we provided before. Those are just the arguments, nothing really fancy here. But then we're going to use the dog collections insert1 method. Now, insert1 is a method that's going to insert one document into the database, and then it's going to resolve to some new information. From that information about the new document, it'll have stuff like the ID and things of that nature. We are going to then use our getDogById method on this exported object, just so that we could have the addDog method nice and cleanly return the actual dog data structure from the database. So as you can see, it hit that and it went over to here, where it's going to then use the resolve to the dogs collection again, and then use the find1 method. Now find1 is going to take up one parameter where we describe the identifier, where we describe the document we want to find. For now, we're just going to be matching on the ID. However, in later lectures, we're going to teach you how to do some other things like match in a range, or match where things are greater than something or less than something, and so on. For now, we just want the dog where the _ID field, which is the automatically generated identifier, is equal to the ID that we provide in the argument, which happens to be a bunch of gobbledygook. So then we go, at this point, the add Sasha method has resolved by the time we're at this breakpoint. Now, we're using this promise and we're just chaining off of this. So when we add Sasha, the result of that promise is going to resolve to the object of Sasha, which is a little funny to say that. Now if we look at our debug window stuff over here, we'll see that Sasha's got an ID, Sasha's got a field called breeds, and Sasha's got a name, which happens to be Sasha. And now what we can do is we'll log this, we'll step over to the next breakpoint. Now if I have my debug window open, let's go and toggle debug console, you'll see that it logged all about Sasha over here. Now we're going to add our first post, a review by Sasha of a certain type of blue cheese from France, because as we mentioned in the lecture slides, Sasha is a cheese expert and connoisseur. So you'll see here, we're returning a promise, we're returning a promise that will resolve to the posts, to the new post that we've just created. Now in the previous video, we didn't have this post module, so let's take a quick look at what we're doing. In posts, oh, there we go. I forgot a breakpoint here. When we add a post, we're going to take three parameters, a title, a body, and the poster ID corresponding to the dog that which we want to find. And what we're going to do is we're going to first get the dog that corresponds to the poster ID, because we want to add posts in such a way that they have a title, a body, and a subdocument field. This subdocument field has the ID of the dog and just the name. Now we just want the name so that we don't have to requery and find the dog's name when we want to show some basic information about this blog post. That's one of the benefits of document-based databases, is that we can store little bits of data. In SQL, we would have used a join operation. However, because document-based databases don't have concepts like that, because there's no such thing as these what strictly defined tables and columns and stuff like that, we can just instead store little bits of data. The downside is when we update the dog, we're going to have to update all these posts to update the dog with that ID with the new name. So there are trade-offs, and it really depends on if you're a read-heavy application or a write-heavy application, what you want to use. Now, just like we inserted one dog, we're going to insert one post and then return another promise that resolves to the new post. Now that we've had Sasha write her first post, we're going to have Sasha update her first post. Now this is no different than updating a dog, for example. Now we'll see in a moment how we do the update post method. But you'll notice that we can just send the post._id from the new post, a new title that we want to set, the post content, because let's check our debug window. That meant to be post body. So that's going to error out and wipe out everything. So let's change that right now. And we'll just jump right through all that. That's why we use debuggers, to catch these issues and correct them. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so now we've jumped through. It's time to update the post. Let's just make sure I got that right this time. Yeah, post body. We're using the same poster ID because we're going to have the poster object with Sasha's ID. Now when we update the post, we're going to do a similar way. We're going to first grab the dog, that's the poster, because what if we change the dog that posted? Then the next thing we're going to do is set up the updated post with the title, the new body, the new title, the new body, and the updated poster information. Then we're going to call the postCollection.updateOne method. Now, the updateOne method, as we mentioned in the previous video, is going to take two parameters. One object that describes the match we want to make. In our case, we want to match the post ID to the ID that we supplied in the function. So with that, we're going to just simply do the _ID to the ID. Now this object, we could have other fields. We could have add more specificity in the update, but we don't need it right now because IDs are unique and they'll never be reused in a collection. Finally, we're going to pass the entirety of the updated post. Now, by returning the updated post, what we're going to be doing is replacing it entirely because we're not using any methods such as special Mongo methods to just change one field at a time. In a later lecture, we'll be looking at that on how to do that so that we don't have to repeat the replace the entire document every single time. So then it's going to get the new post. We're going to log what the new post is. As you can see, now the post is. And you'll see that the title has changed for the love of that particular type of blue cheese. And now we're done with this. We're going to remove the post. And it removes the post using the same format of finding a post. We provide one parameter that just matches what we want to remove. Now in later labs and lectures, we'll be able to remove multiple ones if we so dearly desire. But as you can tell, all this syntax of updating and removing, it all follows the same general pattern. And it's much nicer to just, in your app file, deal with things like update the post rather than update post and writing these queries on the update collection and so on in all of this code. So that's just a practical example of why we write these abstractions. So that's a very quick overview of how to actually use the MongoDB database while writing Node.js. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to email me and ask away, or post on Canvas. Have a great night.